What if the reason your life feels chaotic isn't because the world is hard, but because your mind has never been trained to stay in control? Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yet most people live the opposite of this truth every single day. They overthink everything. They react emotionally. They chase approval. And they suffer, not because life is unbearable, but because their mind is undisciplined. Seneca warned us, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And Epictetus reminded us, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Still, most people stay trapped in stress, anxiety, and mental weakness, reacting to everything, controlling nothing. This is why Marcus Aurelius' teachings are not just philosophy. They are mental warfare training. And in this video, I'll show you 11 brutal lessons from Marcus Aurelius that will rewire your mind forever. But you must stay with me till the end, because lesson 9 will completely change how you see yourself. And before we go deeper, like, subscribe, listen to the end, and drop a comment below if you're ready to take control of your mind. Because most people will hear this and still remain the same. 1. Control what you can, ignore everything else. Marcus Aurelius said in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is one of the hardest truths to accept, because most human suffering comes from one mistake: trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. You worry about people's opinions. You stress about outcomes you cannot predict. You replay conversations you cannot change. You try to force life into outcomes that are not in your hands. And every time you do this, you lose peace. Marcus Aurelius didn't teach this as theory. He lived it as an emperor surrounded by betrayal, war, political pressure, and chaos, yet he kept reminding himself that the only real battlefield was the mind. Because external events will always move without your permission. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Things will fall apart. But your mind, that is still yours. Most people suffer not because life is painful, but because they keep attaching their peace to things they cannot control. The Stoic shift is simple but powerful. Stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Start asking, "Is this inside my control or not?" If it is not in your control, release it. Not emotionally. Not temporarily. Completely. Because every second you spend trying to control the uncontrollable is a second you abandon your own peace. Reclaim your attention. Reclaim your response. Reclaim your mind. Let go of everything else. If you don't master this next lesson, everything else becomes useless. 2. Your mind becomes what it consumes. Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily in Meditations. "Such as are your habitual thoughts, such will be the character of your mind." This means something most people never fully understand. You are not shaped by what you want. You are shaped by what you repeatedly allow into your mind. Every thought you entertain is training your identity. What you watch when nobody is looking. What you think about when you're alone. What you listen to every day. What you repeat in your inner dialogue. All of it is slowly building the structure of your mind. If you constantly consume negativity, comparison, and distraction, your mind becomes scattered, anxious, and weak. But if you deliberately feed your mind discipline, truth, and focus, your thinking becomes sharp, calm, and controlled. This is why Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Because self-mastery begins with mental diet. You cannot live a strong life with a weak mind being constantly programmed by chaos. Marcus Aurelius knew this. That's why he wrote to himself every day, not for motivation, but for mental conditioning. So ask yourself honestly, what is shaping your mind right now? Because whatever you are consuming is what you are becoming. 3. Pain is not harm, your reaction is. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people never realize until it is too late. Pain is part of life, but suffering is optional. He wrote in Meditations, "Pain is either endured or rejected by the mind. This means pain itself is not the problem, it is neutral. It is an experience, not a sentence. What destroys people is not what they feel, but how they interpret what they feel. Two people can go through the same situation, loss, rejection, failure, humiliation, yet come out completely different. One breaks down and calls it the end of the world. The other stands still, breathes, and says, "This is difficult, but I will not let it define me." That difference is not talent. It is training. Most men don't fail because life is too painful. They fail because they have never trained themselves to respond correctly to pain. They immediately attach meaning to it. This means I am not good enough. This means I will never succeed. This means I am unlucky. But Epictetus taught the opposite. You are not harmed by events, only by your judgment of them. This is what Stoic freedom actually is, not avoiding pain, but mastering your interpretation of it. When you stop reacting emotionally to pain, you stop giving it power over your identity. You still feel it, but it no longer controls you. You still experience it, but it no longer defines you. That is strength. That is discipline. That is control. So the next time life hits you, remember. Pain is not the enemy. Losing control of your mind is. You are not weak because life is hard. You are weak because you have not learned to think correctly yet. 4. You wake up every day to serve a purpose, not comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "At dawn, remind yourself, I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, and selfish." He didn't write this to complain about life. He wrote it to prepare his mind for reality. Because life is not designed to be easy. It is designed to test you. Every single day you wake up, you are stepping into a world that will challenge your patience, your discipline, your focus, and your emotional control. People will misunderstand you. Situations will frustrate you. Delays will test you. Discomfort will follow you. And if your only goal is comfort, you will always feel like life is attacking you. But Marcus Aurelius trained himself to see something different. Not every obstacle is a problem. Some are responsibilities. You are not waking up just to feel good. You are waking up to act with purpose. Comfort makes you weak because it removes resistance. But discipline builds strength because it forces resistance. That is why Stoics lived with awareness, not avoidance. They didn't wake up asking, "How can I avoid difficulty today?" They asked, "How can I respond correctly to whatever comes today?" This mindset shifts everything. Because once you accept that life will include difficulty, you stop being surprised by it, and you stop breaking under it. You start showing up with intention instead of emotion. You stop chasing comfort, and start building character. And that is where real strength begins. 5. The opinion of others has no value unless you allow it. Seneca once said, "He who is not satisfied with himself will not be satisfied with anything." This reveals a truth most people never escape from. If you do not build your own approval internally, you will spend your entire life chasing it externally. And that is where most suffering begins. You start measuring your worth by how people react to you. How they look at you. What they say about you. Whether they approve, like, or accept you. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to lose control of your own identity. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As an emperor, he was surrounded by judgment, advisors, enemies, critics, citizens, and political voices constantly forming opinions about him. But he trained his mind to see something important. Opinions are not reality. They are projections. What people think about you often says more about them than it ever says about you. A distracted mind will judge you. An insecure person will criticize you. A confused person will misunderstand you. And if you build your self-worth on unstable opinions, you will live an unstable life. This is why Stoics taught a radical idea. Stop negotiating your value with people who do not control your destiny. Because the moment you depend on external validation, you lose internal freedom. You begin to adjust yourself just to be accepted. You start hiding your truth to avoid rejection. You shrink your personality to fit expectations. And slowly, you stop being yourself. But when you understand Stoicism, something changes. You realize you are not here to be approved, you are here to be disciplined. People's opinions become background noise. Not because they don't exist, but because they no longer define you. Your worth is not something you receive from others. It is something you build through your actions, discipline, and character. And once you understand that, no opinion can break you again. 6. Death is not far, so stop wasting time. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of one uncomfortable truth. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say. Most people avoid thinking about death because it feels negative, but Stoics did the opposite. They used death as a tool for clarity. Because when you truly understand that life is temporary, everything unnecessary loses power. Suddenly, arguments don't feel important. Procrastination feels dangerous. Distractions feel expensive. Fear feels irrational. Most people live as if they have unlimited time. That is why they waste it so easily. But Marcus Aurelius trained his mind to remember. You are not guaranteed tomorrow. Not even the next hour. And this awareness does not make life fearful, it makes it intentional. Because when you stop pretending you have infinite time, you start treating every action like it matters. You stop postponing what is important. You stop delaying your purpose. You stop living in hesitation. You start speaking with honesty. You start acting with urgency. You start choosing discipline over comfort. Death, in Stoic philosophy, is not a threat, it is a reminder. A reminder that every moment is borrowed. And once you accept that truth deeply, you stop living like someone who has time to waste. You start living like someone who has something to prove, not to others, but to yourself. And that changes everything. 7. Your character is built in private moments. Marcus Aurelius built one of the most powerful empires in history, yet his greatest battles were never fought in public. They were fought in silence. Because real character is not built when people are watching you, it is built when no one is there to reward you, praise you, or even notice you. This is where most people fail without realizing it. What you do when nobody is watching is the real measure of who you are becoming. Not your public image. Not your social approval. Not what you claim to be. But your private discipline. Do you still stay consistent when motivation is gone? Do you still control your impulses when no one will find out? Do you still choose discipline when comfort is easier? Marcus Aurelius understood that a strong mind is not created in moments of recognition, it is shaped in repetition, in solitude, in silence. Every private decision either strengthens your character or weakens it. And over time, those small unseen choices become your identity. This is why most people stay stuck, because they only perform discipline when it is visible. But Stoicism demands something deeper. Be the same person in private that you pretend to be in public. That is real integrity. That is real strength. And that is how Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire without losing control of himself. So ask yourself honestly, who are you when no one is watching? Because that version of you is the one building your future. Like, subscribe, comment below how you intend to put this into work, and stay with me till the end. Because this is where real transformation begins. You are not stuck in life. You are stuck in habits you refuse to change. 8. Don't argue with foolishness, withdraw. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This is not just advice, it is protection for your mind. Because every argument you enter is not just a conversation, it is an exchange of energy, focus, and peace. And most people don't realize how much of their life they lose trying to prove things that do not matter. You argue to be right. You argue to be understood. You argue to defend your ego. But in the end, what do you actually gain? Almost nothing. And what do you lose? Time. Peace. Clarity. Emotional control. Marcus Aurelius understood that wisdom is not proven through arguments, it is proven through behavior. A strong mind does not need to win every debate. It knows when silence is more powerful than explanation. Because not every situation deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your response. Not every person deserves your attention. When you argue with foolishness, you lower yourself to its level. But when you withdraw, you protect your peace. This is what Stoics practiced. Not avoidance out of weakness, but withdrawal out of strength. Because real strength is not in reacting to everything, it is in choosing what is worth reacting to. And once you master this, you stop being emotionally available to every distraction around you. You become selective with your energy. And that is where mental freedom begins. 9. You are not your emotions, you are the observer. This is where most people finally break, because this lesson goes deeper than motivation. It goes into identity. Epictetus taught, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but your estimate of it. Let that sink in. What this means is simple but life-changing. Nothing outside of you has power to control your mind, unless you give it meaning. Most people think their emotions are who they are. I am angry. I am depressed. I am anxious. I am stressed. But Stoicism destroys that illusion completely. You are not anger. You are not sadness. You are not fear. You are the one who notices these emotions appearing. And that separation changes everything. Because once you realize you are the observer, not the emotion itself, you stop being controlled by what you feel in the moment. You begin to create space between stimulus and reaction. Someone insults you, you feel anger, but you are aware of it. Something goes wrong, you feel stress, but you observe it. A memory hurts, you feel pain, but you watch it pass. And in that space, you regain power. Most people suffer because they become their emotions. They merge with them completely. But the Stoic becomes different. He watches his emotions without becoming them. This is real emotional mastery. Not suppression. Not avoidance. But awareness. And once you develop this, nothing outside of you can fully control your inner state again. If you can master your mind, you can survive anything. 10. Life will break you to build you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. At first, this sounds impossible. How can an obstacle help you move forward? But this is Stoic intelligence. Every obstacle in your life is not a stop sign, it is resistance training for your mind. Think about it. Every setback forces you to adapt. Every failure forces you to improve. Every delay forces you to develop patience. Every rejection forces you to build resilience. Nothing is wasted, unless you waste the lesson. Most people see obstacles as punishment. But Marcus Aurelius saw them as instruction. Life is constantly shaping you, not by giving you ease, but by giving you pressure. Because pressure reveals character. And if you respond correctly, obstacles don't weaken you, they refine you. This is why Stoics do not pray for an easier life. They train for a stronger mind. Because they understand something most people never accept. You do not grow from comfort, you grow from resistance. And once you adopt this mindset, nothing that happens to you is wasted anymore. Everything becomes training. Everything becomes preparation. Everything becomes part of your strength. 11. Live like everything is temporary, because it is. Nothing in this life is permanent. Not pain. Not pleasure. Not success. Not failure. Not fear. Everything you are going through right now is temporary. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this truth to stay grounded in reality. Because when you forget that life is temporary, you become attached to things that were never meant to last. You suffer more. You fear more. You cling more. You overthink more. But when you truly understand impermanence, something powerful happens. You stop overreacting to everything. Pain loses its grip because you know it will pass. Success loses arrogance because you know it will fade. Fear loses control because you know it is temporary. Only one thing remains stable: your character. That is why Stoicism does not focus on controlling life. It focuses on strengthening the mind that experiences life. Because everything around you will change. But who you are becoming inside that change, that is what truly matters. So live with awareness. Live with discipline. And never forget. This moment will not last, but how you respond to it will shape everything. If you made it this far, you are not average. You are ready for something different. These are the 11 brutal lessons from Marcus Aurelius that will rewire your mind forever. But understanding this is not enough. Marcus Aurelius didn't write these words for motivation. He wrote them for survival. He was reminding himself how to think when life became difficult, when pressure increased, when everything tested his mind. Now the question is simple. Will you go back to distractions? Or will you actually apply what you just learned? Because the Stoics already made it clear. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." Now it's your turn to decide who you become. If this message hit you, don't just watch and leave. Like, subscribe, stay with me till the end, and comment below which one of these lessons hit you the most. Because when you say it out loud, you make it real. And remember, a strong mind does not react. It responds. And that changes everything.